I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe. Please hit like. I'm back at the bench today after almost a month, and I'm working on a platform balance for a gentleman, and it's a old British clock, I believe, and it's a carriage clock. So I'm going to be repivoting this platform balance today. This is a tricky job, but I think I'm up to it. I'm going to do a lot of measurements before I start because I really want to know where the tip of the pivot needs to be. I'm going to use the other pivot, the one that's not broken, to help me size the thing. So let's get on with this. So I have here one of my many watchmaker's lathes, and this one here has a specific jig in it that allows me to actually repivot nicely while putting the pivot in here, and this is going to align it nicely so I don't have any chance of chattering of the drill bit, and hopefully that works without a problem. And this lathe works a little bit noisy, but rather nice. It's got a vintage motor on it here, vintage watchmaking lathe motor. It's on a barrel stand, and it's got a flip over tool rest, although I don't need the tool rest for the pivoting exercise. I need to move this out of the way, just kind of get rid of it. But this here is the most important part of this setup here, and this is the this dog will help me guide the right drill bit in through to the appropriate part. So I've got to, first thing I'm going to do is strip the balance down. I've got to remove the hairspring from it, and after I've done that, I've got to make sure I do the measurements properly. Measure, 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 and then I'm going to chuck that up, and I'm going to get rid of kind of what's the word here I've got looking for here. I'm going to flatten out the pivot I'm going to be repivoting, so the shaft of the repivot. I'm going to flatten that out with a file likely. To make it flat enough to be able to drill the hole, and I've got to figure out what type of pivot wire I need to use, what size of a hole do I want to drill, etc., etc., etc. So we'll just start this activity and we'll do it step by step and see where we end up. So here's the block here, and the first thing I want to do is mark where I think that stud should be, although I'm probably going to have to move that around, but I'm going to fit this in one of these holes and allow enough room for it to lay flat like this while I mark this, and just take a marker. I'm using black this time, it doesn't really matter, and I'm looking at the stud relative to the hairspring. It's probably somewhere around here, I'd say. So I'm just going to mark this like this with a black marker like that, and that means when I put that hairspring back on, that's where it's going. So that's that part. Now I've got to remove that hairspring. Like I've done many times, I remove this hairspring by using 2 screwdrivers, but first I've got to get low and at it, so I'm going to get rid of my face here so you don't just see the hat. So here I'm taking 2 screwdrivers. I'm going to dive underneath the arms and then put these screwdrivers in and twist them in the opposite direction, and that should enable me to move that hairspring collet upward. So I'm just making sure I put downward pressure on that collet as well. Just to make sure that if the screwdriver is slipped like that one just did there, that it's not going to upset the hairspring, because these hairsprings are not easy to get a hold of. Put the hairspring away in storage here, just so I get it out of the way. So now I've got the balance now, and its roller table, which is all good, and I pretty much want to clean this off first. So I'm just going to clean that off in alcohol, make sure it's nice and clean. I'm looking at the balance right now. It looks relatively true. It's not too bad. I've got the mark on the side here, on the top here for the when I reinstall, and I've got the upper pivot. And what I want to do is measure this upper pivot. So I'm going to use the same size lower pivot, because usually when they made these things, they made sure that the pivots were the same size. I want a piece of Rodico here, but I've grabbed way too much of it, but I just want to clean the pivot off a bit with Rodico. Then I want to measure from end to end on this. I'm going to guess the pivot length on this when I do the measuring, given the length of the other pivot. So let me get the measuring tools out first and do some of that. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do here is measure the size of the good pivot. I'm using this gauge here, and this is a Burrell pivot gauge. It's got all kinds of jewels in here. There's only one jewel missing, which is 28. I can't remember how I popped that thing out, but it's missing. So that's jewel number 28. I got to get a little bit lower here, and so I can flip my glasses over. Just grab the balance the way it is, and I'm just going to push that in, and then look at where it fits. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be a 12 or something, right? Because it's for a no, it's bigger than a 12. It's for a carriage clock, which would mean the pivot's probably bigger on the end than it would be for a pocket watch. So I'm going to go up to 14 now, or 15 maybe, and see if it fits into a 15. Nope, it's not fitting into a 15. Let's go for 18. Much better. And then 19, it looks like it fits into 19, so it's going to be fairly big compared to what I normally do for a pocket watch. So here's 20. There, 20 fits nicely. So what I'll end up doing is shaving it down to 19 fits nicely. '18 is too tight. So I think 19 is the size here. I'm going to get my pivot down to size 19. So I probably want to write that down somewhere because I'll forget it. So just get yourself a piece of paper and a pen and write that number 19 somewhere so you don't forget it. So get an old piece of Rockport paper pad here. So I'm going to put pivot size 19. Get the pen to write. Why do pens never work when you want them to? And then one of the apostles invented the pencil. So pivot equals 19. So I know that. So it's 0.19 basically, right? Even though I say 19. 0.19. So now I want to measure the actual balance from one side to the other. So to do that, I've got a bunch of these gauges, and they will stay where I put them, which is good. Does that make any sense? It's going to stay where I put it. And so these gauges here, I can use this gauge here and simply open this gauge up, measure the distance between the tip of the pivot on one side and the other side, and just leave it like that. Or I can translate this measurement to a ruler, which I might do just in case. I also have a jewel depth gauge here, which is kind of interesting, but I don't need to use that. But I could use the jewel depth gauge as well to measure between X and Y. So what I do here is I'm going to want to be very careful doing this, but I'm going to want to bring this close to the pivot like this and then just measure it. So hang on. Get down here and see what I got. I'm pretty close actually. All right, so now what I want to do is actually grab that with something so I can hold it nicely. So this device here is meant for heating up the roller table for changing the impulse jewel. So, but I think that it can also help me to just hold the balance. I'm not absolutely sure this will work, but let me hold the balance in place while I measure both sides. I can also use a micrometer, but I think if I just very carefully grab this, I want to be able to grab the roller table with this. You just do this without upsetting anything. So I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to push down on the table here. Put that roller table in the middle and then squeeze it down. Is that working? This always scares me. All right, so that is on the edge, which is no good. So I want to move it over. So that's pretty good there. So this is what this looks like. And I'm just going to put my hand back here for a little bit of focus. So I've grabbed it like that. I'm staying away from the impulse jewel. But now I should be able to just hold this to allow me to move this around. Or even better, okay, is you should get one of these vices or bench, what is it called? A bench vise maybe or something. So, because this one here, I can unscrew this and hold this inside, I think. Yeah, because I've done this before. And just squeeze down on it just a bit, because this is wood, I don't want to crack it. So now I've got this kind of in my face, and now I can use this gauge here to just measure both sides. Now I'm being very precise with the measurement, and I'm not worried about make it a little bit bigger. A little bit smaller. A little bit bigger, quarter turn. That's pretty good there. So that's where the pivot would end. Now there's no pivot on one side. So this is the measurement here. So now I'd love to translate this measurement to another device, and I might be able to translate it to the deuxième gauge, but let me take this apart here. So just get rid of that, and let me rest that down here for a second. It's all about having the right tools, folks. And without the right tools, you're going to do the wrong job. Does that make sense? I think it does. So now I've got this situation here, and I want to just make sure I translate this over, because I want to be able to have that pivot size perfectly. So if I look at the deuxième gauge here, deuxième means 12, and how wide can I make this deuxième gauge? Pretty wide. And I just try to translate the measurement, or transfer the measurement to the deuxième gauge. What do I get? I get 10, it's 80 point, just a bit bigger than 80.5. That's one measurement I'm going to use. That's pretty good right there. So that's 80.3, just over 80.3. So that's good. I'm just going to make that as a reference note, and I'm going to measure again. So that's 80.3, and that's the deuxième D. I'll just put D gauge. And that 80.3 is the balance staff length. So that's the balance staff length. Now I'm going to go grab another. So here I've got an extremely precise micrometer, and I'm just going to see where this fits in. So if I go out to, I think it's probably going to measure at 8.3 and not 80.3. But let me just wind this thing out and see what I get in millimeters. And I'm going to fit that in between here, like this, and then close down on it and see where it ends up. So it's going to be 8.3, should be good. So let me just close it up a bit more, a bit faster. There's 8.3 right there. And if I look down on this, would that give me enough pivot on the end here? So I'm thinking 8.3. Yeah, I think that's enough because I can trim the pivot after. And that's 8.2 right now. And 8.3 is 8.3 is probably not bad because I can try it out and trim it back, right? So 8.3. Let's just be safe because you can't make a pivot longer. So this is probably the best way of doing it. So 8.3 is good. And like I said, this gauge here just gives me a quick view of it. And if you could look at that, 8.3 is around here. And if I look at the inside, it's right on the money. So this gauge, I'll leave this gauge out and I'll leave it as that, and I'll leave this as 8.3. And now I'll just drop the balance down here, and so I've got myself a length of the pivot, which is really cool. So now the next thing I need to do is chuck this up. I had this 80.3, but it's really 8.3, like that. 8.3. The Deuxième gauge said 80.3, but I wanted to make sure it's 80.3, and I'll leave this tool to be the exact measurement so I can do a good job. So now I've got to face it off. I forgot what that was called earlier, and then repivot the end here. So it's, I'm going to leave the roller table and jewel in place for this job, and I need to pick a wire that will work. So let me just get myself a pivot wire that'll work, and then I need to find a chuck for this as well. So I'm going to chuck this up first, that way I've got some control over it. So what I want to do is, I need a chuck that's the right size, so let me think here. I'm not sure how big this is, but I can do a little bit of guessing here to start off with, and see how good my guessing is. And I think I want to chuck it right at the base here, because it looks like it's super strong there, which means it's a pretty big, it's bigger than usual. That's probably too big right there. Oh, it's pretty, no, it's too big. It's got too much side shake, as they call it. So let's put a lucky 13 in here and see what that looks like. I'm always conscious of where the pivot is, so 13 is also too big. So I'm going to go down to an 11. Just do 2 steps at a time and chuck this. And 11 is actually almost right, but too big. This is like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So I'm going to go down to a 10. 10 might do. My long fingernails are because of my guitar playing, in case you just logged into my channel and you're new to my channel. So a 9 is almost the right fit. And as I put this in and out, I try to clear the, that's a 10. So this is a 9. It's getting pretty tight though. A 10 might have to be the one. Yeah, no, a 9's not going to fit in there. Not this 9 anyway. So I'm going to get my other chucks out and see if a different 9 will fit, because a 10 fit, but they're not always standard size. So let me get another set of chucks here. Now, I tried an 8 with this here and it did not fit. So this is not going to work. It's a terrible, terrible thing. So I'm just going to have to go with the 10. Now we're going to just chuck this up in the lathe. So now what I always do when I'm working on a balance is I put it on a piece of Rodico. That way the pivot can't be broken off, which would be a bit of a disaster. So I can put this aside now, try to keep my arms away from it, try to keep my sleeves away from it. There's all kinds of stuff that can drag your parts over, and so when you're moving the lathe in place, that can be a problem. Now I have just for cutting material here, I've taken this is what is it called? It's called a dish pan or dish something, and I can put the lathe on this now because it'll collect the leftover metal filings and not make a big mess on my bench. So I move that out of the way and just put it kind of like this. That should do, right? and then set my lathe up properly, I need to move all this stuff around. First, I want to get this out of the way. I'm hoping that tucking it over in the corner here will be sufficient, right? To just basically, so I don't have to unscrew the whole thing. And then I've got to chuck up my part, right? And then the first thing you do in chucking up your part is to put this in place. I just kind of move my cameras around here, but I've got the chuck in here, and I just want to chuck this up. Usually you rotate it a little bit until it finds there's a piece of metal for aligning the chuck on the inside. And I need to tighten that, but I don't need to tighten it completely until I get the part in. So then I want to grab the part very carefully and put that in place. So here's the part. Just take this out like this and really carefully put that inside of the collet. You do not want to break or ruin the pivot. I'm going to do it from this side. I'm kind of blocking it, but all I'm doing is putting it inside the collet here, so it's not that exciting. There we go. And once I've gotten it inside the collet, I can tighten that, hopefully. It doesn't seem to want to tighten around the part yet. So I'm going to just let go of it for a second and do that. There we go. So that's around that part right now. And it's fairly tight, and I'm not sure whether it's spinning nicely or not. So it's got a bit of a, yeah. So I knew that by doing it that way, it's going to be slightly off, right? So, but I can use this device here to help guide it as I loosen it and tighten it up again. So let me loosen this up here. Oh my God, this thing is tight right now. Come on, there we go. It's been in there for a while, I think. So there we go. So now I'm looking at centering this, get the appropriate dog in here. So which means I've got to hit the appropriate drill bit, which means I need to know my piece of metal, which means a lot of other things. So you can't really straighten this up until you've got the rest of that nailed. So I'll back this off right now because I want to now measure, the shaft, and I want to have enough material to be able to repivot and to not ruin anything when I'm repivoting. So I'm measuring the shaft itself, and if I look in the deuxième gauge, which is upside down, you got to have it the right way. I'm going to do this, measure the shaft like that, and look up here, and it's at around 6 is where it's sitting. So this would be 10 is the first number, and it's sitting at 6, kind of just below 6. No, right at 6. So that's at 6. So likely my piece of pivot wire needs to be somewhere around 4, 3 or 4 or something, right? So, and that's basically 0.4 millimeters is what I'm looking for. So as the process goes, I will drill the hole first. So I make sure my drill bit is a lot smaller than my 0.4, whatever, my 4. And then after I've drilled into this piece, I will take a piece of blued steel, and I will be take this off and shave the blued steel down until it fits in the hole that I've created for this balance staff. That's the process. So right now I need to grab some drill bits first and make sure my drill bits are the right size. Now I've got 4 drill bits to choose from here. One of them is probably the newest one, and the other 2 have been used before, or the other 3 have been used before, I think. And these drill bits are for drilling electronic circuit boards, and I actually have to go and grind the end off to taper them down, because when I use these drill bits, let me just give you an example here. I'll take this drill bit here, and this drill bit will go on the end of the shaft here, like that, and it has to be tapered in order to stick in there like that. So I'll do that, but first I want to make sure that the drill bit is not too wide for the hole I need to drill here. So I'll just take this off completely, get that out of the way for a second, and then have a look at this drill bit. You have a boo at it, and see how thick this thing is. And this drill bit, so this drill bit would do, but it's not leaving me with a lot of wall on the side. And I've had the problem before where the wall cracked, and I was kind of screwed because the wall cracked and I had nothing remaining. So this drill bit here is also, this is doable, but again, pretty big. I may have no choice here, but let me look at this drill bit here. This drill bit here is, this one's nice. So this is a smaller drill bit here, but the problem with this drill bit is it's very long. Although I think it's a 3 millimeter drill bit, so which is fine, or 0.3 millimeters, because remember before I have to get my pivot down to 0.19. So drilling, getting it at 0.3 and repivoting a 3 should be good. So I'm going to use this drill bit right here. So that's my go-to drill bit. And if I have to, I've got a pack of drill bits that I can re-taper if I need to. So that's my drill bit. So now what I need to do is get this properly centered, right? And to do that, I have to make sure that the dog I've got here, let me see, I got to put this on somehow. There we go. I got to make sure this is the right one to go through. So what I'm going to do is do a little testing here with the drill bit. So I'm going to take this here and just like that. I want to put the drill bit in there like this, right? And then I'm going to take this drill bit, and this is I think the runner or whatever, but I'll run this all the way through on the inside here. And I had to make a sleeve in order to fit this particular device, this particular tailstock. So I don't know whether this is the right size or not. It might be from the last time I drilled, or this could be a little smaller. I think it can be a little smaller. So what I do then is I've got to loosen this and rotate, I believe. I think that's what I do. There's a little guessing going on here, but just so bear with me. So I want to rotate this to the right size. And I do have, let me just get this, I want to make sure it's the right size. And when it goes through, it's going through nicely. So I just need to fart with this until I get the right size. And I want it to be, you have to have the bit be able to go through the piece. So if this is it here, it needs to be able to go through that hole that I just identified. And I'm playing this thing back and forth, but this is not how I'll end up centering it. So there we go. So that went through nicely, and that is a good fit right there, I think. I don't think I needed any more narrow. I think that'll hold it in place nicely. So that's the right hole I want to do that with. I apologize, I'm not getting super close-ups on this and stuff, because I actually want to get this job done today. So that's that there. And now I want to center the thing, right? So I think I found a centering, my good old center here was in a bag hiding. I think this is the center here. Yeah, so I think this is the center used for this device. So let me just see if that works. And there we go. That's going in nicely. Just going to rotate it here to make it go all the way through. There we go. And now I can tighten this down a bit so I get some control over it like that. And now this is good here. And is this centered? It's not centered, but I can loosen this up like that, and then just twist this until it's centered. And right there, it's centered. So that's good there. So now I've got this centered perfectly along this shaft. And so I tighten this on the bottom here. There's a little key here to tighten that. So I just tighten that up like that. Make sure that's super tight. Then I can back this off. And it's just like when you're using your staking set and you have your centering stake. This is kind of a centering stake, except it's a, I think it's called the drawbar for the center. So now that I've got that done, I can move the tailstock up to the part, and the part should actually ride in the center of this. So it should be, because this will ride down through the center, and I can see it's going up a little bit, but when I end up rotating this, I'll loosen this up a bit and then rotate it and see where it sits when I rotate it. So I just loosen it up just a tad, right? And now I got to push the pedal down. So that's perfectly aligned right now. So I'll tighten this up a bit and see if I still have it perfectly aligned. It's a little bit of rattle on it, which I don't like. So I'm just going to loosen this up, move it forward a bit, loosen this up a bit, and then spin it again. Tighten this so it doesn't, so the tailstock doesn't go anywhere. There, that should be perfect right there. So let me just switch cameras and show you what I've done. So there it is, as you can see. Hopefully, it's hard with the shiny background. It doesn't like the focus, but you can see it there in the middle. The shaft is there. You can turn this and there's no issue at all, but you can see that shaft perfectly aligned in there. So now what I do is I can like flatten the end of that shaft, and then once that's flattened, I'll start my drilling and I'll be able to drill right through there, hopefully. Now I use a simple diamond file here to flatten that out. That seems to be the best thing to do here. Let me just turn off this light here because I think it's too light. Simple diamond file, and I just eyeball this to flatten it and take off that material. So, and what I'm really concerned with is later on when I put the pivot in to make sure that it's the right size. I also would like the right depth of the pivot. So, and that's a bit tricky when you're measuring the drill bit going into the material. So hopefully this material isn't ridiculously hard either. So now I'll just work this quickly with the file and flatten it up here. Make sure I got my foot on my pedal here. Keep overreaching. And this here, is this tight? This should be tight. Yeah, this is tight. Just seemed like it was... So I can use this or a plate. I have metal plates, but this should do. The diamond plates actually work really fast as well. And you don't need to turn the part that much. to get this thing filed down. I probably need to put a little more pressure on it because I'm kind of chicken. But don't want to put too much pressure, because if this slips and hits the roller jewel, then I've got another problem altogether. That there should do. That should be flat enough for now. The other thing I can do here, which is just thinking about, is I can actually get a graver here and make sure that I've got it centered properly with my graver, right? So you just have to have your tip over tool rest here in the proper position. See if I can bring that around a bit, and I want to be able to line this up properly here, and then perhaps use a graver to flatten that out a bit more. So I've got my tip over tool rest is tipped over nicely, so there, do that, and then tighten that up on the bottom. And for now, just get rid of the tailstock, because you're liable to have a problem if you leave that tailstock in there. So now I've got to set my graver height and all that wonderful stuff first. So you just get in here and make sure I've got the graver close enough to the part so I don't get chatter on it. Alright, that's too high. Lower it a bit. Lower it a bit more. That should do right there, I think. And bring it in a little closer, maybe. Yeah, that should do right about there. So now I just have to tighten everything before it drops. So that's tight there, and this is tight here. And because I'm working really close here, I have a different area loop that I bought, and this is a ×10 area loop. So I'm just curious whether this loop will fit on these glasses, and I can just flip between the super close area loop and which is a ×10, I think, and the other one. So I got two area loops here. I'm going to just flip these loops around really quickly. I'll just show how I'm doing it here. You can see down below. So I just wanted to grab the area loop off the back and just do that. Put that down, and then grab the other area loop, and it flips up and out of the way. So this would be the top here, and this would be the bottom. And this is also a large size area loop. So now this is like this. So now when I get close to this, I should be able to get super close to this. Yeah, that's nice. That's pretty good there. And now I'm not sure whether this graver has been appropriately completed or not, or polished. I may be too close here, actually. Still rattling a bit, eh? Maybe loose inside here somehow, but I was hoping it wouldn't be, but it seems like it is. Yeah, which makes it very difficult to do this. So I may end up just using the file instead of doing this, because this is a little bit inconvenient here. Yeah, so we're gonna actually use a stone to finish this off instead of the file. All right, I'm still gonna get up a bit close here and see if this. I think this magnifying glass is too close. Yeah, I think I'm doing this. I don't think I need this level of closeness. Yeah, so I'm going to flip back to my other area loop because this one is way too close. Now the problem I have is my glasses are, I've got a lens on the bottom here that are a ×3 already, right? And so, and these are a 2, I think, so ×3 down the bottom times, and you add my 10 on there. I'm not sure what the math is, but it's pretty friggin' close. But this is a lot better. There, so that's, there, I finished that off. I'm going to put a little bit of a bevel on the very end, just a minor one. Like that. Okay, so that's that. And again, somebody, I think Sonny Morehouse told me what the name of that stone is. This is an Arkansas stone here, the white one, and this one here is a, guess the stone and you win a prize. So it's not that stone. But I'm going to see again, I'm going to look at this. I might try to start the hole here with a different drill bit, a tougher drill bit, to be able to start that hole off and center it before I get the drill bit I really want to go on, right? So I don't think with the little bit of a rattle I have here on this, it's not too bad. That post is pretty good now. I didn't like the tip of my bit here. It just wasn't sharp enough. This one might be better, but the other one absolutely was not sharp enough. This one might be better. Might be able to center with this one. So I'll try this one out, and if this doesn't work, then we're going to we're just going to use a drill bit to center with. Put that out, take this out, put that back in, and once again I've got to line my tool rest. And I mean, cut all this stuff out if you want me to, but or just keep chatting because I haven't done a chatathon in a long time. And I think this video I'll stop after I've done all, I call it setting up for doing this, the setup. That way you're not bored shitless. So here I want to be able to center this here, right? Which means I probably have to rotate my tool rest just a bit, like that. And if I rotate it a bit like that, then I got to move it over like this, over and out maybe. It's probably not the best tool rest to use for all this stuff, but I just need a bit of an angle on it, not a terribly big angle. So something like this, like that. Right, now what I'm going to do is take my area loop and put it on a different pair of glasses and see if that helps. Or I'm going to go back to my tried and true made in China ×15 lens here and see if I can make a center here. There we go. That did it. So I actually have a center now. I use these old made in China glasses I've been using for years. But I think the other area loop on a different pair of glasses probably would work really well. I might have to try that out and see if it gets me closer. I think I have a pair of glasses here, but I think they're broken. This pair here. I could try it out really quickly and see if this area loop works on this. So this works a lot better, except these glasses are broken right here, so they're not really glasses I'll use for watchmaking, but I'll get another pair of glasses that aren't, maybe there are just no lenses in them at all, and I can just use the loop itself and not have to worry about additional magnification. Because if I look at this, if I just go down like this and have a look, yeah, that works perfectly. Or if I just put my head back a bit and have a look, it's also really good. So there's a sweet spot, I think, for using this airy loop. So we'll do that, and we'll get ourselves a pair of glasses, because if I, the next time I make a bounce staff, I'll be using this loop rather than the Chinese made in China $10 magnifying glasses, although they did work. So now now I've got this situation here. So I've got this started, which is great. This won't go back until I loosen this here and bring it back, and then do this, drop it down, tuck that up, and then tighten that over like that. What time is it? Geez, it's almost 3 o'clock, folks. So this, I don't need this anymore, which is good. And now what I need is this back plane here, tailstock here, and we just tuck this in again like I did last time. So this is the tailstock that goes in like that, and that is the right one, but I want to loosen this again like I did last time. Although it tends, if I push this against it pretty hard, it tends to stay, which is nice, right? But what I'm going to do is loosen this like I did last time. Let it sit this in here nicely, like that. Tighten this up, like that. Tighten this, and then, yeah, this should turn on that axis, right, on those 2 points. Yeah, so now when I drill, I can push my drill right through this hole here, and that should drill right through that shaft. So this is phase 1. I've got it all set up. I don't think I'll do the drilling in this phase, although I will record it. And what I want to do is drill into this hole here and go down. Probably I want to go deep enough to be able to pivot, to get the pivot in. So what I want to do then is put a mark on my drill bit, and this mark will tell me how far in I've gone. So let me just mark it right. I just put a black mark on the drill bit. Now that drill bit might snap, because I've had that happen before. And what I want to use as well is cutting oil. So I've got cutting oil, and I'll just grab that. And there's the cutting fluid. It doesn't work too well without cutting fluid. So I've got myself set up. So it took about an hour and a half, I'd say, probably about an hour and a half to set everything up. So just the setup alone, and facing off this part, that's what it's called, I keep forgetting, is about an hour and a half. I use, like I did last time I used this, is I use a piece of pegwood to actually just put oil on the bit here. So, and I've got like a ton of cutting oil, so you don't need that much cutting oil, but I'd like to start this off and see what happens. Alright, so let me back this off a bit and put some cutting oil right on the tip here, like that. Push that back in, and I'm going to do a little bit of praying here, okay, because that's what it takes to drill holes into pivots. I'm going to back this off now, and then back this off and see if it did any cutting at all. The other thing I've done over the years is taking the drill bit, and I've or the drill bit, and then shape the end of it like a hat to actually. Yeah, no, that didn't cut anything yet, so that's not good from a cutting perspective. It might be too hard of a metal to be cutting, or it might be the end of my drill bit. Not sure. The other thing I might do here is go down to a smaller hole, because I saw a little rattling back and forth. So I'm going to rotate this to a smaller hole and reset it up. Alright, so I moved the whole darn rig over to set it up for a smaller hole, and I'll see if that makes a difference here. The other thing I might do here is actually snap the drill bit. I've done that before because it doesn't seem to be cutting at all. Snap the end off the drill bit, and then you just snap it kind of halfway, and then you sharpen it using a diamond plate, and that sometimes provides a better cutting surface than this here, because this does not seem to be drilling in at all, which is not good. And I know if I press harder, it's not going to make a difference. It's just going to snap off. Let me see if any of the other drill bits I have are smaller. There, I did find a shorter one. I'm not sure if this one will work, but I think this is from a past job here, so we'll see if I get a little bit better action out of this drill bit than the other one. The other option here for me, though, is to build a whole new balance staff. This doesn't want to seem to cut at all. Oh my God! We have a look at the back here. Maybe getting a little tiny bit of action here. Wow, that's not cutting at all. That's amazing. That could be a super hard piece of steel though too. And this, yeah, so what I'm going to do is take my sheet of diamond, and try to sharpen the end of this. Alright, repivoting, it was a complete failure. And the reason why is that the drill bit that I had, it broke off inside the shaft. So this little tiny drill bit, it was a different one, broke off inside the shaft, causing me not to be able to repivot this balance. So I took the balance out like this, and I'm going to make a brand new balance staff on a lathe, because it's probably going to take me less time than to repivot. So we're going to do that and see how well that works, because I know how to do that. And this one here is just so touchy. If you're able to get metal that's soft enough to be able to pivot the metal to drill into it, then great. But this metal was so hard, it was ridiculous. It couldn't pivot, couldn't drill back into this. So it was a waste of time. So I'm going to have to strip the balance down, take off the roller table, and make a new balance staff. Alright, that's it, folks. I promised to document even the disappointments, and this was a disappointment. So what I did was I made the balance. I basically attempted to repivot. Did everything you're supposed to do to repivot. But the problem I had is that the metal was way too hard. And so it's taking me way too long to get the metal deep enough to be able to get the thing repivoted properly. So I need to get the hole fairly deep in there in order to hold the wire, and then I've got the ability to actually grave that wire down, or the pivot wire down into the right pivot size, right? So the idea was good. I've done it before, but this balance was way too hard. So it's wasting my time like crazy. So what I'm going to do is just make a new balance staff. This is going to be a little tricky, but I think I can do this a lot quicker than I can continuing to try to drill that hole. So what happened was, and this has happened before, in drilling the hole, the carbide bit snapped off inside the hole, and then, as you know, if that happens, you're screwed. There's no recovering from that. I've tried picking the bits out with a microscope, but it's just not worth it. So very depressing. And like I told you before, I can't stand platform balances. So guys, I know you're watching, John and Paul, but I just hate working on these things. So I'm going to refuse the next one, I tell you. You're smart. You convinced me to do it. So what I'm going to do is punch the roller table off this, punch the balance off this, and then just make a brand new balance staff and put it back in again. So this will take me a lot less time, I think, than what I'd been doing. So that's it. So I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for subscribing to what I do. I do like doing it. I just get pissed off when something like this happens. But that's all part of watchmaking. So there you go. Please subscribe. Please hit like. Please share. Please give me your comment. And let's do it again another time.